Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we are joined by author Jean Burke, who is a homeschooling mother and creator of the revolutionary and award-winning College Prep Genius, a curriculum which has helped thousands of high school students prepare for the SAT and ACT. After both Jean's parents received full-ride scholarships, Jean began teaching these secrets to other homeschool, public, private, and charter school students. Her program is the culmination of more than a decade of research, classroom experience, and SAT, ACT expertise. After Jean's presentation today, we will have a question and answer session. Please feel free to add any questions you might have in the chat box at any time, and we will get to as many as possible at the end. And be sure to stay tuned till the very, very end, where Jean has a very special offer for today's webinar attendees only. And with that, I will hand the mic over to Jean.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this seminar because I think it's probably one of the biggest questions that I get asked all the time. You know, should my child take the SAT or the ACT, or here's what I've heard about this one or that one. And so we're going to clear up a lot of things that you may or may not have heard that are true or not true. And I love this graphic here that I pulled offline. As you can see, it's there's a source of where it came from, because it kind of just tells you, pretty much tells you all right here. If you'll notice on the left side where it says SAT takers were 1.6 million, and then ACT were 1.8 million, 85 in 2014, which of course has since changed. But I'll tell you a little bit about why that's important in a moment, and why they even created a new or redesigned SAT, and how that affects anything that we're talking about today. So I'm really excited. You're also probably, if you've never heard me speak before, you probably find you know, or you don't know, that I kind of talk fast, even though I'm from Texas, and we're having amazing weather today. Hopefully y'all are doing so where you're at, but it's a lot of information. You might feel like you're drinking from a fire hose because it's so much, but don't worry. I'm going to show you in the very end. I'll give you the link to the notes that you can get them. Also, put your email in. You'll also get some more tips on free college. So don't worry so much about taking a lot of notes. Just kind of sit back and relax and listen, and just kind of concentrate on what I've got to say, because hopefully it can be revolutionary for you. Just kind of as a quick background, as Kaylin was saying, yes, not only did we get free college, but we've taught tens of thousands of students how to do that over the last, since 2004. So going on around 15 plus years now. These are just some of the TV shows that I've been on. These are some of the radio shows I've been on as a Fox News contributor. So that's been a real huge blessing. And of course, everybody knows about what happened last year, when we had that scandal where people were actually paying for someone to take the SAT, for their kids, or paying someone to change the answers, that sort of celebrityism, or another way we call it green privilege. But the great thing is that we don't have to, pay $500,000. As a matter of fact, we don't have that kind of money, and those celebrities could have saved, over $499,000 had they just known about me and jail time. But I want to talk about these tests. SATs, ACTs are standardized tests. And this is actually good news. That means that when a company like an SAT or an ACT writes a test, they follow the same patterns and the same rules, same concepts. When a child goes to college, they have to have some kind of numerical component that's common to all applicants. Because as we all know, a standardized test is a way that colleges can compare the abilities of students across this nation and do it fairly. Because a 4.0 GPA at one school doesn't, mean the same thing at another school. One student can take hard classes and one can take easy classes and have easy teachers and have the same GPA. How else can, they make up for the obvious differences between student knowledge, or even the teaching aptitude, or even the degree of difficulty across various curriculums. And we know that as homeschoolers. So, or just plain biases. And that's where a standardized test like an SAT or ACT come in. What happens is they help compensate for the differences by leveling the playing field. And interestingly, a student's score also helps predict what kind of academic success they'll have in their first year of college, because they can compare those to previous students. So kind of here's the bottom line. A standardized test has standardized questions and standardized answers, which means they can be figured out once you understand that. Now, what are these tests even used for? Well, number one, of course, college entrance. You've got to take a test to get into the school. And then, of course, they're used for scholarship money. Now, we go back to that entry frame that talked about the ACT takers. The thing about the tests are they are very, very similar. And I'm going to explain why in a moment. And, you know, why do colleges even consider tests so important? Well, number one, rankings. U.S. News and World Report ranks all colleges from number one to the very last one. And there are thousands of colleges. Number one right now at this very time is Princeton, and the number two college is Harvard. And so what happens is the national rankings are based on the scores. So the higher your the test score, the more scholarship money a student's going to get, because it ultimately elevates their rankings up higher and higher, which makes the school look better and get more money. And also the colleges will use the test scores for data for future students. Like we said a moment ago, they could take a student today who scored, let's say, 1350, and they can compare that against someone who scored around a 1350 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and they can say, okay, did that student graduate? Did they graduate with honors? Did they become a supporting alumni? And they use that to sort of predict, college readiness as well as college success. So again, it's the only fair way to compare all students equally. It's that the great equalizer, or the yardstick that's fair for everybody, and especially for us homeschoolers. They can look at our transcripts and say to us, well, how do we know you didn't make that stuff up? Because they really don't know. And that's why so much is weighed heavily, not only on normal students in public or private school, but definitely for us as homeschoolers. So it kind of validates our transcript. Now, what do these tests even test? Well, they test our logic and critical thinking skills, because it is the only thing that we all have in common. Because your kids might have really hard, rigorous courses, and then the guy down the street, has easy classes, and there's no way a college can compare the two. So it's all based on the one thing that we do have, regardless of what state we live in or what school we go to, and that is our critical thinking and reasoning skills. And it also tests our time management skills. So you're going to get somewhere around about a minute per question. And so if a student is used to spending maybe 2 or 3 minutes, let's say on a math question, then they're going to burn up the clock. So bottom line is, how well can a student answer questions under pressure in a short amount of time? So this is what they're actually measuring when they test you on an SAT or an ACT. Now, if you listen to the College Board or the ACT company, the American Test Company, college test, you would think that it's all about what you learn in school. So you'll notice right here, if you go to both their websites, ACT.org and collegeboard.org, it'll tell you that these tests measure what you learn in high school. Both of them say that. Well, if that were true, then we would not be having valedictorians in our classroom every week, or top 10% of the students. We get calls all the time, hundreds a week, emails, all say almost the same thing about how their child has a 4.7, they're an honor and AP student, and yet they have a very low score. So it has nothing to do with what you learn in high school. It really is about your logic and thinking skills. So which one should your child take? Well, going back to the fact that the SAT and ACT are very similar has to do with the fact that back in 2012, when David Coleman took over for the College Board, it was the first time in history that more students took the ACT than the SAT. It was about 1.8 million to 1.7 million. So it wasn't a big difference, but it was enough for him to take notice. And so what he did was he hired ACT writers to rewrite the new SAT. And this is why they're very similar. There's such a crossover of information. So which one should your child take? Well, I recommend try them both. Both the College Board and the ACT website have free tests that your child can go online and try them both at your own time and kind of get an idea. You'll probably find that they're going to be very, very similar in scoring when you compare the scores. There's a lot of comparison charts that you can just get online. We have one as well, but you can just Google that. Now, there used to be a thing called the 1/3 rule, and that was where 1/3 of the students did better on the ACT, 1/3 did better on the SAT, and 1/3 did about the same. And that was based on the fact of time. The SAT used to be 10 short sections. So you might have 20 minutes of writing and 25 minutes of reading and then 25 minutes of math. And then the ACT was 4 long sections where you were sitting for over an hour for each section. Well, there were students who didn't do well in the SAT because they couldn't switch their brain fast enough from a 20-minute writing to a 25-minute reading. And then there were students who couldn't do well sitting over an hour for math. Now that the tests are very similar, you're going to see very similar timing. So they're both 4 long sections on the test. And so, like I said, there's a crossover information that works on both. Now, keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with trying them both, because sometimes you might get a little bit more money on one over the other, because colleges, well, every college takes either one. If they prefer one over the other, they'll convert the score. So one more point on the ACT could get you another $10,000 or $20,000 more. So it's worth trying them out both. When I was in San Marcos, California last year, the lady who hosted my class said her daughter got a full ride to college, and they actually used her highest SAT reading and her highest ACT math and gave her an overall super score and a full ride. Now, as I was saying, they are both they're both accepted by every college. 100% of colleges will take SAT or ACT. So if anybody tells you different, don't listen to them. There's a lady right now in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's hosting our class, and some of the comments that she's getting back from the families is, well, we only take the ACT here. Well, that's actually not true. The schools may be only promoting the ACT, and they're also obviously doing a disservice by not teaching the kids the SAT because of the PSAT, which has a scholarship program. And so, and they're like about 99% the same test. As I said, the ACT writers wrote the SAT. So both are used for college entrance, and if the college does prefer one over the other, they will convert the score. So if your student got a 1340 SAT, that is the same as a 29 on the ACT, or vice versa. So keep that in mind. Crossover of information works on both. We have students who've got as high as a 36 on the ACTs using our SAT program. I have there's a couple. There's a lot of testimonies on my website, but there's a couple twin boys in Ohio that did our program, and they took the SAT and the ACT, and I think they got a 33 and a 34 on their ACTs, and they both landed in the national merit range on the PSATs. So it's a great way to show you that you're using the same strategies for both. Now, you'll notice right here, these are the minor differences between the two tests. SAT is going to give you one less answer choice in the reading section. The writing and English test about the same thing. Math pretty much tests the same thing. Now, there is no science on the SAT, only the ACT. But the good news is you don't have to know one iota of scientific knowledge to ace the science section on the ACT, because it's like the reading section on the SAT. Now, the biggest difference in my mind is really the essay. The SAT essay is now analytical, where you're given about a 600 or 700 word article to analyze and write a response. And the ACT is persuasive, like the old SAT, where you're given a prompt question and then you have to respond. But both are offered 7 times a year. SAT is unlimited and ACT is 12 times a year. Now, one of the great things about taking the SAT many, many times is that most colleges will super score. And that is, they'll take high scores from different tests. So if your student got a really good math score on one and a better reading on another, then the colleges will super score and pull them together to give you an overall composite score, a better score. which gives you, of course, more scholarship money. And they also have what's the SAT. The ACT doesn't have this, but the SAT has something called score choice. And that means you don't ever have to send any scores in until you want to send them in. You can send them in if your younger students take the test, which I really highly recommend. They don't have to worry about their scores because they can just go in there and take it. There's no pressure, and only send in the scores when they're ready. Now, all this information and these links that I'm giving you, again, will be in the notes that you'll get. So again, don't try to worry about writing all this down. Now let's talk about the fee information. So if your student signs up for the SAT, right now it's $49.50. With the essay, it's $64.50, and the ACT, again, very similar, $46 or $62.50. Now, you can get waivers. Now, a waiver can pay for several tests a year, depending on your situation. Even for homeschoolers, you would see your local guidance counselor. I've had families just walk in the door and they gave them a waiver. I've talked with counselors who tell me that their waivers are completely wasted, that nobody takes advantage of them. Sometimes they want you to be on free or reduced lunches. Sometimes they'll just give them to you. And, you know, if you definitely worth checking into. So you would use those waivers when you register online at the College Board website on the SAT or ACT, and that would pay for the test. So again, they're both offered 7 times a year. Now, this right here is going to give you an idea of why most students don't do well. Number one is because they don't realize it's logic and not about IQ or what you've learned in school. The second thing is time. You'll notice on the right side of the screen in red, this is basically what you get per question as far as time. You know, in the ACT, we're talking anywhere from 36 seconds, 52 seconds, 60 seconds. SAT, 47 seconds, 75 seconds. So again, if you don't understand the fast ways to answer the questions, certainly you're going to run out of time and leave a lot of blank answers. Now, good news is the questions can be answered in 30 seconds or less. Now, these are learnable tests because they're standardized. You've got one objective, indisputable answer and several distractors. And so students can learn the recurring patterns that the College Board and the ACT company use on every single test because they're going to stay the same. And certainly that's going to give them that advantage on beating the test because it's not about reading everything or trying to work out everything the long way. And if a student is studying for one, they're basically studying for the other test. So if you're studying for the SAT, it's going to help you on the ACT or vice versa. Now, when it comes to switching over on the SAT and ACT, basically some very basic things is SAT, like I said, does not have a science section. Only the ACT does, but it's like the SAT reading. So if you treat them the same, you're going to be fine. And the ACT, on their math section, they don't have what's called a grid-in section. That is where at the end of the math, there's about 4 or 5 questions that don't have an answer choice, and you have to come up with it on your own, and then you have to grid it in a box. And as I said, the SAT essay is about analyzing an article. ACT essay is about writing a persuasive response. Now, to show you what I'm talking about when it comes to ACT science, a lot of students are very freaked out about it because they're thinking, well, I'm not that great in science, I'm not going to do very well. If your student had never taken biology or anatomy or physics, they can still beat the ACT science section because again, it's not about what you know as far as your knowledge is concerned. You don't have to be some kind of scientific genius. Is anybody out there happy about that? Because I know I am. I'm definitely not a science genius, and really neither were my kids. It's just not the way we were bent. Okay, so let me tell you what types of questions that you're going to find on a science question on the ACT. You're going to get a question that's just simply about the passage only. You might get a question that asks you about the chart or some kind of graph. You might get a question that asks you about the passage and the graph or chart. Or they might ask you about what's trending, some kind of data on the chart. Or they might ask you about what's called the double charts or 2 different graphs, so some comparison. So again, they're not asking you information about your science experience. They're asking you about specific information that's found exactly in the chart and passage that they're giving you at hand. So you don't have to go in knowing anything about it, because all the information, all the answers that you need are right there in front of your face. So here's an example taken from an ACT science question. Now you'll notice the question says, which of the following best describes how the two scientists explain how craters are removed from Europa's surface? And then you've got scientist 1, and then you've got scientist 2, and you have a variation of sublimation, water, and wind. Now up here at the top are excerpts from the two passages. The first one is an excerpt from scientist 1, and the second one is an excerpt from scientist 2. Now notice up here in scientist 1, it says that the liquid water oozed up into the crater. So if I go down here to scientist 1, you will notice that there's only one answer choice that has anything to do with water. So you could actually quit right now and you're done with that answer. Okay, but let's confirm it. Let's go to scientist 2 and notice that it says the ice continually sublimes. So if we come down here to sublimation, now we notice that, of course, our answer is B. And that didn't take any scientific knowledge to answer that question. Now, let's talk about the ACT math. Again, if we're crossing from the SAT to the ACT and vice versa, you're going to find that the same patterns are going to be found on both tests, and the same strategies are going to work on both. So here's an example that I've seen on both the SAT and the ACT. The length in inches of a box is 3 inches less than twice its width in inches. Which of the following gives a length L inches in terms of the width W inches of the box? Now, this is a strategy that I call pull out the math. So instead of trying to draw a box and fill in some numbers and then try to figure it all out, notice that length is L, is means equal, 3 of course is 3, less than is a minus sign, and twice its width is 2W. So now look down at the answer choices, since y'all are sitting there with your chat box, and tell me which answer contains all those key elements. Awesome, I see the answers coming in. You guys are getting, this is great. Wonderful, wonderful. Absolutely, absolutely. Good guys, great going guys. You're right, K is correct. And what's cool about that is you did not have to do any math. Basically, it is see the math and don't do the math. All right, here's another math problem that I'm going to show you that came from the ACT science section, which the same strategy works on the, and the same patterns are on the SAT math. For all non-zero real numbers, R, S, A, and B, such that A over B equals 5R over 4S, which of the following expression is equivalent to S? Now, most students are going to look at that, of course, and they're going to start trying to work the problem out and spending several minutes and wasting a lot of time. But this is a pattern that I call clone invasion. It's where the wrong answers look like the right answer. Now, notice right here, 3 out of 5 answers have a 4 as a denominator, and 3 out of 5 answers have A as a denominator. 3 out of 5 answers have 5 as a numerator, and 3 out of 5 answers have an RB as the numerator. All right, y'all, again, what is our answer choice? Awesome, guys, you're doing awesome. Thank you so much. K is correct. The reason the College Board does this is because when they, and the ACT company does this pattern, is because when they write a math problem and they come up with the right answer, they have to trick the students. So they'll take variations of the right answer to create the wrong answers. And so it only makes logical sense that the wrong answers, that the one have a similar, some kind of part of the right answer, but the one that has the most obviously is going to end up being the right answer. Now this is, of course, is only one of the patterns that they use, but it's a great pattern to answer a question without knowing the math. Now, let's talk about the ACT English section, as well as it's called the Writing and Language section on the SAT. So this is where students are given a passage with underlined parts, and then they have corresponding answers, questions to them. So for example, number 1 over here, the question would be over here, number 1. Now this is found on both of the tests. ACT gives you 36 seconds to answer the questions, plus read several passages, and the SAT gives you 47 seconds to read 4 passages and answer 44 questions. Okay, so again, logistically, there's no way you have the time. Now, you'll notice that over here you have the passages, and over here will be the questions. Well, what's really cool about this is that we teach a strategy where you can answer most of these questions in 10 seconds or less. But I'm going to concentrate on question number 1. Okay, so you have the question up here, you have the underlined part, and then you have answer choices. Now, no change would be if there was nothing wrong with the answer, you would pick no change. Okay, so now instead of having about 47 seconds to read everything, let me show you the pattern. Instead of reading linear, think vertically. Now, notice the only difference is punctuation. So this answer has a comma, but these 2 answers do not. These 2 answers have a period, and this answer does not. Okay, again, ladies and gentlemen, which answer has the most in common with the other answer choices? Awesome, doing great. C is correct, very good. Okay, again, a very fast way to understand the patterns of the test. You know, if you take a history test, you study history. If you take a geography test, you study geography. If you're going to take a logic test, then what you do is you study the logical patterns that are on the test, and that's how you do well, because it's testing how well you can think under pressure. Now, the reading section on the SAT and ACT, again, extremely similar. Same type of questions, same type of patterns. Now, I don't know how many of you out there, you have a student who second guesses themselves or overthinks the question. If you have one of those students, or maybe yourself, put a yes in the box, because I know most of us do that. We look at a question, we might even know the right answer or find the right answer, but then we look at the other answer choices and then we kind of change it and we end up getting it wrong. And actually that is how they designed the test, to make you second guess yourself. And so I'm going to show you the 4 patterns that the College Board and the ACT company use to make you or your student do this. And this is, and once you learn this, this will help you and, teach you not to do this in the future. And it falls under my acronym COAT, C-O-A-T. In other words, they'll give answer choices that are completely irrelevant to the question. Now, they might be relevant to another part of the test, but not that question right there. Or they might be obscure, confusing, or the answer might just add some additional information or extra stuff that you didn't have there. Or they might just be totally contradictory or say the opposite. Now, once a student learns that they use the same recurring wrong hidden patterns on this section, on the SAT and the ACT, then they can, instead of looking for the right answers, students look for the wrong answers and eliminate those first. And then the correct answer will be the one that does not break any of these rules, okay? Let me give you an example. This is taken from an ACT test, okay? Up here is an excerpt from the passage. And then the question says, which of the following statements about children entering the community center is supported by the passage? Okay, well, certainly this is just an excerpt from the passage, but let me go through and show you why 4 out of 5 of them are wrong. The first one, F, unrealistic expectations that tone down the informal conversations. This is very confusing and actually doesn't make a lot of sense. It's there to kind of confuse a student or have some kind of weird relationship to make them think, well, I didn't really know what that meant, but so that must be it. Street children rarely get enough to eat. Well, that may or may not be true, but that's completely relevant to what the question is asking. In Abshu's eyes, the children were likely to succeed, the ones who he gave the most trouble. This is adding some additional information. This information was not in the passage. They were prepared to believe in each more than themselves. That was actually contradictory. They did not believe in themselves. And so that's saying the opposite. But in Abshu's eyes, they were all gifted. Well, notice up in the answer choice, it says every child. That means all. And it says that they were gifted. So J is the correct answer. So whether your student's taking the SAT or the ACT, once they understand that both test companies use very similar wrong patterns, they can learn to eliminate those first, which will ultimately leave them with the right answer. Okay. Now, when it comes to the SAT and ACT essay, the SAT essay is an analytical response. ACT essay gives you a prompt sentence, something to the effect of, should school uniforms be mandatory? And then the students are given 40 minutes to write a response on that. Now, even though like the SAT, even though the ACT essay is optional, most schools are going to require it. So it's usually having something to do with public school policy, something to do with high school. It's always good to consider some kind of counter argument. Now, the SAT essay is analytical, and we have written 30 templates that you can use. Even on the ACT, you just use my old SAT program and use the templates, and you can beat the essay and write it in about just a short amount of time and be done with it and get a perfect score, high score, perfect score. We had many of those students. So definitely the essay is, even though it's optional, you can go to this website here, collegeprepgenius.com/required ACT essay, and that will list the schools that do require it. Same thing with the SAT as well. Now, the SAT essay is, again, also optional. But again, just like the ACT, we in College Prep Genius highly, highly recommend that your students write the essays. And I'm going to give you 5 reasons why. Number 1, it gives the application a complete profile. So this does not hinder any scholarship opportunities. Number 2, if a college admissions counselor is on the fence about your child's application, they use the essay as a determining factor. So if your child wrote the essay and the other student they're comparing them with did not, then they're going to go with your student. Number 3, it actually is a way for a college to determine whether you should be exempt from a writing class or not. There's a lot of colleges that if a student wrote the essay, they don't have to take any writing classes. Now, that's not every college, but it's a great factor for a lot of students who don't like to write. Also, if your student took the SAT essay, for example, and they did very, very well, but they opted out of the essay, and they find out later on that their child, that the college they want to go to, that your child wants to go to, requires the essay, now your student has to go and take the whole SAT over again, not just the essay part. And then, of course, the last thing is if your facility that you take the test at has some sort of experimental section, 5th section, then if you've written the essay, then you don't have to sit for that. So I think that's, it's not going to hurt them. You always want to go that second mile. The judges spend somewhere around, 30 seconds to grade it, even though your child spent 50 minutes writing the SAT. Same thing with the ACT. But it's going to be a published article. And, if your child can just sound smart and follow a proven template, which I've written 30 of them for your student to use, they can do very, very well. Now, again, if you want to find out the colleges that require the essay, here is the link. And of course, this will be on the notes that I'm going to send you. So here's what my friend says, and I love it. Optional is not optional. Recommended is required. So what I do with my students is I tell them, this is your new language to learn. This is in your new vocabulary. And if you'll learn that and you'll do that, then, you know, in life, you're always going to be doing whatever's extra, whatever stands out. It could be the differentiator for you. And one of the things I think a lot of students don't know is the kids who do the optional work in many, many cases are the ones that move on. The kids who don't do the optional work are usually in the first cut. So just keep that in mind. Now, I want to talk about, I know we're talking about the SAT and the ACT, but I can't help but not bring in the CLT. The CLT is the classic learning test, CLT. It's a rapidly growing alternative to both the SAT and the ACT. And what happens is students will take this test in a proctored environment, generally at a local testing center, and they'll use their own device like a laptop or a tablet. And they'll receive same-day results. Now, the content of the CLT reflects the richness of the Western intellectual tradition. So in other words, you're going to get passages from C.S. Lewis or Charles Dickens. And, in contrast, it's not aligned with any of the Common Core standards. I'm really excited. Matter of fact, I just had a conversation this morning with Jeremy Tate, the founder of the CLT. And, I'm always encouraged every time I speak with him. But the CLT is offered in around 170 plus colleges right now. It's accepted, like Patrick Henry, Liberty Christian, Baylor, Hillsdale, Bryan, Wheaton. And they probably gain somewhere around 3 colleges a week. Every week you got a new college or several adopting it. And of course, it's attached directly to scholarship money, just like the SAT and the ACT. Now, their website, of course, is cltexam.com. But what I'm really excited about is when I met Jeremy about 3 years ago, he actually said, I want College Prep Genius to be the only test prep company that we are going to recommend, we're going to endorse. And they gave us the license to create a CLT program, which we have. It's written, it's ready to go. I just have to get it on digital, but it should be out in the very, very near future. I've been sidetracked with many, many other things, so I haven't had a chance to finalize the technical part of it, but the program is written. Now, it is $54 to take the CLT, but if your students will use the code CPG18, that will cut your registration in half. So instead of spending $54, that's going to drop that down to about $27. And even if you do the practice test, use the code as well, because that can enter you into, they often have drawings for Apple Watches. So you can go find out more about cltexam.com. Now, what I love is I just spoke with Jeremy just this morning. We're going to meet up. He's going to be in Dallas in a couple of days. And we're going to just meet up and have lunch. And one of the things that I love that he said to me was the CLT now is the great differentiator. In other words, maybe your student is not going to go to one of those 170 plus colleges. Well, the CLT could be the difference in the school that they go to. He was telling me the story about when they first started out, they contacted Harvard probably at least 30 times and Harvard never responded. Well, now what's happening is students are, if you go to Harvard or Princeton or one of the Ivy League schools that have very high test score averages, everybody there has probably a 34, 35, 36 ACT or a 15, 50 or more SAT. Well, a student who takes the CLT has now become the differentiator. And now what's interesting is it's the thing that sets them apart from everybody else. And now Harvard is now sending them letters asking them about adopting the CLT there at their school. So it's pretty cool. So even if your student isn't going to go to one of these other schools, CLT could be the difference of getting in where they want to go. Now, I also want to tell you another really cool thing. I love giving inside secrets, and that is about the CLT-10. As you probably know, if you've heard me speak before, I'm such a big believer in the PSAT because my son was a National Merit Scholar, and we ended up throwing away 7 trash bags of college offers, anywhere from full ride, free tuition, room and board, grad school, and so forth. And then after my daughter got scholarship money, that's when people were bombarding me, asking me how we got free college. And that's when I wrote a program and started my program years ago. Well, so I'm a big believer in the junior PSAT, but I want to talk about the CLT-10 This is an opportunity for your students, if you, as a sophomore, can also receive amazing scholarships. This is an alternative to the PSAT. It's kind of on par with it, because what they did, they partnered with the NAS, the National Association of Scholars. Now, the CLT-10 is offered 3 times a year: September, February, and April. And here's the cool thing: your student, your sophomore, can take all 3, and they will take the highest score. So they have 3 opportunities as a sophomore to receive scholarship money. Now, still take the PSAT as a junior, but don't limit your opportunities by taking the CLT-10 as a sophomore. Now, let me show you why this makes the odds really incredible. Last year, 1,600 students took the CLT-10, and 3.5 million took the PSAT, junior PSAT. So you can see, to get in that top 1% of the odds are so incredible. Now, if there's not a testing facility in your area, you as a parent can proctor the CLT at your own home. It's an honor system, and it doesn't cost anything. It's completely free. So the goal is, of course, to get in the top 1%. And if you do, not only can you get these full ride scholarships, you can even get an extra $2,500 from the NAS. So I call it a game changer. It gives your student another time in their life in the sophomore year, and 3 opportunities to get a full ride to college. And of course, when it breaks it down, what the CLT-10 does is they have 3 top scholar awards, the top one at a school, even though your children are homeschooled, those regionally, depending on where you live, and of course, the national scholar based on the top 1%. And you know, I can't go without telling you, when I talk about standardized tests, which is what we're talking about, of how important a standardized test is when it comes to basically using the skills and techniques on so many other tests. So one of the things I've learned over the years is that by simply learning how to beat a standardized test, you can use those strategies on many, many tests. Not only on, let's say, grad school, law school, med school, basics. We've had many people use our program on a bunch of different tests. So I wanted to give you a couple bonus strategies here. When it comes to when a standardized test company, whether it's an SAT, an ACT, a CLT, or whoever, what they do. And they have to follow 2 major features or elements. They have to make sure the test normalizes and that it follows the same patterns and rules on every test. So here's an example taken from a GRE from a while back. You'll notice this is an analogy. And this is where you have 2 prompt words up here, malinger to work. And you have to determine the relationship between those 2 words. And then you have to find the answer that has the same relationship. So we all know what work means, but you probably may not know what malinger means. And by the way, there's 171,000 plus words in the dictionary. So there's no way we're going to know them all. So if you look at the answer choice and you might think, okay, well, pilot to flight. Okay, that sounds like his job. Maybe that's it. But then you see the word labor or boss, and you're sort of on this rabbit trail because you're thinking about work. Well, here's one of the patterns that the GRE used when it came to an analogy. And that is, if you had a word at the top prompt that was an unknown word like malinger, what that meant was that these 2 words were either antonyms or synonyms. So in other words, they either meant the same thing or they were opposite. So if we looked at our answer choice, you'll notice that there's only one answer choice that was an opposite answer. And that means obviously malinger and work are opposite. And that's your answer choice. And you didn't even have to know what malinger meant, which obviously means not to work or to be lazy. Now, how many of you out there have a student who plans on going to law school? If you do, put a little notation in there. I think we really need some great lawyers nowadays. My son is an attorney. He was offered tons of full rides from law schools all across this nation based on his LSAT score. So I want to give you an example of an LSAT question to go to law school. Terry will go to the concert Wednesday afternoon only if Carla goes to the barbecue in the evening. Carla will not go to the barbecue unless Tom agrees to go to the barbecue. However, Tom refuses to go to the barbecue, so Terry will not go to the concert Wednesday afternoon. So does that have anything to do with law? Of course not. You know, if you're going to law school, You probably don't know a lot about law, and that's simply why you're going to law school. If you're going to go to med school, you probably don't know about medicine. That's why you're going to med school. So they're not testing you about law here. They're testing you on your critical thinking skills. And notice the question says, the pattern of reasoning displayed above is most closely paralleled in which of the following? So what you're going to do is look for what's called functioning words. So will, only if, unless, and will not. Those are functioning words. Now, if we were to go down to the answer choices, let's just concentrate on the first and the last word, will and will not. So if I go to A, I automatically know that will not and will are opposite. B, will and will not, that's good, we'll keep it. Will and will not, that's good. D, will is opposite, and will not and will is opposite. Now, if we go back up here, we'll notice that C has a functioning word although, which is not found in the prompt, and B has only if and unless. So again, that question is an LSAT question that shows you that again, it's all based on your critical thinking skills. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that your students' SATs and ACTs can ultimately determine where they get to go to college and who's going to pay. You know, just with a bachelor degree, a student can earn over 182% more on their salary over a lifetime, just getting that piece of paper. So the great thing is, you know, I'm excited about College Prep Genius because the strategies can work not only the SATs and ACTs and CLTs, but they can work on a lot of different tests. Because what we do is we teach you the fast math, how to answer questions in 30 seconds or less, how to find the answer to the reading passage, and in most cases skip as much as 75% of the passage, learn the patterns that they use on every test, the logic, and practicing, of course, with the right materials from the College Board as well as the ACT company. And here's the thing, start early, start your kids early. If I can say one thing, having done this for, you know, nearly 15 years and spoken to tens of thousands of people, and I do this every year, one of the things that I hear more often is, I wish I would have started early. You can't get time back. And some kids are going to be really good test takers, and they're very logically minded, and some of these things are very intuitive to them. And so for those kids, if they learn a few more little things, can actually put them over the top. And then you've got your other students, and those are the rule followers. And those are the ones that are used to working out everything the long way and reading every word of every passage. And for those kids, they need more time to train their brain and to think logically and how to, you know, attack these type of questions and become a really good trained test taker. So the key is proper preparation prevents poor performance. Prepare early. You would not prepare for a track meet, a championship, and learn to, you know, and run your first, you know, 100 meter sprint, you know, a month or two before the track meet, before the championships. Of course not. You wouldn't learn a few chords on the piano and keys a couple months before a concert, or learn to play Beethoven. So the test taking is no different. And like I said, your students' test scores are tied directly to their scholarship money. This is not my idea. I know as a homeschooling mom myself, we don't like that, but that is just the way it is. Because not only do colleges get their rankings because of scores, they give you more money. And 85% of colleges will admit and give money just based on your kids' test scores. So it's definitely something that you can incorporate into your schooling because you make the colleges look good. So ultimately, your kids can learn to cut their time in half. They can learn why the right answers are right, why the wrong ones are wrong. They can raise their scores hundreds and hundreds of points, even go to Ivy Leagues for free. And as a homeschooling mom, here's really some good news. You can make test prep an elective in your school. So you can add that to your transcript as a test prep, SAT, ACT prep, you know, life logic prep, test skills, and give your child credit for doing the work. Now, what I love is these are just some of the tests that people have come up to me over the years and said, hey, I use your program and I was able to, you know, get a high score, a high score on my AP test, or I use it on the ASFAB for the military, or the NCLEX to get into nursing. It's not that this program has anything to do with nursing or the FBI. It's that most standardized tests are very similar in their format of following very similar rules and patterns on how to find the right answer and how to get rid of the wrong answers. So yes, test prep is an investment, but right now the average student spends about 20 years paying off college loans, or 2 decades of their life. And I know that most of us don't have the money to mortgage our house or to dip into our retirement or our savings, and we don't want our kids to be strapped with debt. So put the time in now, or sometimes you end up paying exponentially later. So I'm really blessed to tell you about some of the awards we won. We just recently won the Blue Ribbon First Place Award from the Old Schoolhouse magazine. You can Google that. We were voted as the best test prep program, and that was voted in by the Old Schoolhouse magazine. Their customers did that. We also recently won the Parent and Teacher Choice Award. I do encourage you to go to Kathy Duffy's website. This is an extra from her review of our program. She's gone through our whole program, and she has a full review on her website. We've been around a long time. We've got lots of video testimonials on our website, as well as written ones. We got thousands of written ones from many, many years. And then we also won we were voted in the top 10 best SAT programs by a website called thebestschools.org. And this is actually a public school website that found us and recognized us, and they get about 1 million hits on their website a month. Certainly we know Heidi St. John, they use our program. The Old Schoolhouse magazine recommends us. And we are the official test prep of HSLDA. So again, we've been teaching test prep for them for about a year. But I do recommend, if you don't take my word for it, read independent reviews online. If you want to watch a lot of video testimonials of students getting high SAT and ACT scores, you can go to collegeprepgenius.com/testimonials. So I'm excited to partner again with the Homeschool Buyers Co-op. I'm honored that they recognize our program. And so they've got a great special going right now. Our online e-course comprehensive program, which includes not only our online e-course, it includes the Vocab Cafe book series, High School Prep Genius, and 15 Secrets to Free College e-readers. Right now, it's on sale at 21% off for $149. They so generously are taking another extra 10% off with this code here. Now, their special ends tomorrow on January 16th. So the special goes off, the extra 10% goes off tomorrow. I'll give you this code more in a moment, so don't worry about having to write that down right now. But their website, Homeschool Buyers Co-op, will give you more information. The e-course is very mom-friendly. You don't have to do anything. I've done all the work for you. I give them the homework guide. I give them the videos, the workbooks they can just download and print out, the essay templates I talked about, the Journal for Success. And they have a year's access to the program. They'll also get our Vocab Cafe book series e-readers, which are fun, wholesome books that you can incorporate 300 SAT level words like lugubrious or plebiscite, and they can learn those and write them back into their own stories and get credit for that. And then our 15 Secrets to Free College, just a lot of ways to go to college for free, a lot of great information on the mistakes that people make on the FAFSA, how to get free grad school and all that. And then our High School Prep Genius e-reader is a great, again, Kathy Duffy has reviewed this. So again, go to her website and read her review. It takes all the guesswork out of what your child should be doing in high school. Every month of every year, we give you a timeline, how to do applications and essays. And if you have a child going to med school, we show you how to skip the MCAT with a high SAT score and even finish in 6 years. A lot of great stuff. And then of course, bottom line is, the Homeschool Buyer Co-op, this is that code LTHNJT. And of course, you can click onto this link here that will take you to their special right now. And also you get the 1,500 smart points with buying the program. And this, of course, ends tomorrow night at 11:59. And now, of course, I gave you a lot of information, but to get the notes to what we talked about this hour, you can go to collegeprepgenius.com/SAT versus ACT truth. SAT versus ACT truth, and that will get you the notes for everything we talked about today, all those links and stuff. So thank you so much for listening. I'm excited, and just going to turn it over to you, Kaylin.
Great. Thank you so much, Jean. As always, that was fantastic. So we have just a few minutes. So everybody listening, please do not be shy. Feel free to go type your questions in that chat box, and we'll start with the ones that we have been gathering. So first of all, we have a homeschool parent who lives in a state that requires yearly standardized testing to measure progress. The SAT and ACT are on the approved list. So she was wondering if it makes sense to have her children start taking the ACT or SAT as freshmen as a way to set a benchmark and give them experience with the test. Would that be wise? And is there any reason she shouldn't take this test early and often?
No, she is right on. Absolutely. I know there are several states that do that. The testing lady who I often see at the Virginia conference always points her kids to taking the SAT or ACT, because the other tests that you have that are required aren't going to get you scholarship money. They're just an assessment. So you might, if you're going to have to take anyone, you might as well take an SAT or ACT that's going to ultimately get you the scholarship money and get you into the college of your choice. So you are right on. I do recommend that, and definitely start early. It's the sooner you start, the more time you have to improve. So it makes only logical sense that if you have the choice to take some other test and one of these tests, then definitely take an SAT or ACT.
Great, thank you. And then we have another parent who's asking, what is the youngest age that College Prep Genius works? Their student is in 8th grade.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. 8th grade is perfect. We teach a lot of 6th graders and above. Now, having said that, not every 6th grader or even 7th grader is ready. As a parent, you know your children. But I've had 7th graders who scored higher than a senior on their SATs. The youngest I've ever had in my class happened twice. I had 10-year-olds in my class.
Wow.
Which again, I don't recommend, but these were kids who were like already in algebra 2. And so their parents said they were fine, and they were. Now that is not the norm, but definitely, middle school, is a great time to start. Now, it doesn't mean that if you've got an older student now, like a junior or senior, that they can't do well, because they can. You can still do well. But as you know, as a parent, when your kids start getting into high school, they get busier. They get more homework. Maybe they take on a part-time job. Maybe they play sports or they have church activities or clubs, friends. I mean, so when you can start them earlier, they can work on their weaknesses and they can gain that test maturity and lessen that anxiety the sooner they start.
Thank you. Would you recommend the optional essay even if a child has dyslexia or dysgraphia?
Yes, because I'll tell you why. If you've applied for accommodations, which I do recommend, and the College Board website has more information about that, then what they'll do is they will time your child separately in a different room. I've had many students who've done this. And so if it's depending on their special needs, sometimes they're given double time or no time constraints. Sometimes the students are allowed to type it on their computer, or maybe even given an oral test. So absolutely.
And then do you have any insights about standardized testing and college admissions for students with autism?
Yes. So again, it's not my specialty by any means. And I know there's some people who really know more about this than I do, but I will tell you that I've had students, who've taken my class, and I'll give you an example, who had autism. When I taught a class in Florence, South Carolina, and this lady called me and she said, my son was told that he would never write, much less go to college. And she said, should I put him in your class? And of course, me not knowing one way or the other, I did not know the answer. I said to her, well, honestly, I don't know, but I don't think it could hurt him. And he did. He took my class and became a National Merit Scholar. So he ended up getting tons of full rides to colleges. So absolutely. I mean, I know that all special needs are different. And as a parent, you know your child, better than anybody else. But definitely I've seen that happen. And so something, for you to make that decision on, but I don't rule out anybody ever, 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 ever. I mean, I get valedictorians in my classroom that have bombed the SAT, and I've had kids who are failing in school ace the SAT. So that's why I think it's something that anybody could do.
And how long does it take to complete the College Prep Genius course in hours?
So the way it is designed, it's designed for 12 weeks. Although if you've got younger kids, you could spend 2 or 3 weeks on one lesson. I've got seniors, people who like double up. But the way it's designed right now and this is why you can give your kids credit for it. So it's designed for 12 weeks. Each day, it's about an hour or so of work every day. That's why, you make it another class. So one day you might watch the videos. The next day you might be reading out the textbook and doing homework from that. The next day you might be doing actual College Board questions that relate to what you've learned. Every day reinforces the day before. So depending on the student and depending on the lesson, you're probably talking about an hour a day, 5 days a week for 12 weeks if you just did it as it's laid out. But then again, you're not limited to that. I have a lot of younger students who they will go over one lesson, several times, and then they'll move on. So that's the beauty of it, the fact that they're taped lessons. You can do them at your own time. And then we do have quizzes now. We've added quizzes to, kind of reinforce what the student just learned.
Okay, and unfortunately, we're out of time, so I'll answer one last question. What can we do if my daughter missed the PSAT in the fall and she's a junior this year? Have we completely messed up?
So that, I do a whole seminar on the PSAT, and I can, if you will send me an email right here at info@collegeprepgenius.com, I will elaborate more. Based on time, I won't go into it, but I will tell you there is a little known secret alternative for anybody else listening out there. If there is a junior who missed your PSAT this year, I will show you how you can still have the opportunity to become a National Merit Scholar. But based on time, just email me and I'll send you that information.
See, this is why we love Jean at the Co-op. She is just so generous with her time and knowledge. So thank you so much for presenting to us today. And I'd also like to thank all of you who attended. It is always just an absolute pleasure to be part of your day. Remember to go to the Co-op to get College Prep Genius. The offer closes tomorrow, and I'm not sure when Jean will be back. So if you want to get your hands on this, you've got about 36 hours. Anyway, wishing you all just an absolutely wonderful day, and we will email out this recording in just a couple of hours. So take care, everyone. Thank you so much.